They were feared by their enemies, revered by their troops, and brought glory to the Roman Empire. Yet, mysteriously, their names vanished from official records. What happened to the commanders of Rome's most infamous legions, who had enough power or fear to erase these leaders from history? When we think of Rome, we recall its glorious generals, epic campaigns, and an unstoppable army. But behind this brilliance lay shadows, silent betrayals, power plays, and conspiracies that spared not even the most victorious. What was meant to be eternal glory was buried under intrigue. What did Rome not want us to know about these commanders? And why did the empire itself choose to erase them from history? Imagine reaching the pinnacle of military hierarchy, commanding thousands of soldiers, winning impossible battles, only to find your greatest enemy within the empire itself. What did these commanders do to deserve such erasure? Was it envy, fear of their influence, or something even more sinister? This mystery connects us to a universal human weakness, the desire for power at any cost. The few surviving records reveal a disturbing pattern: controversial decisions, failed campaigns, or direct threats to Rome's central power. But what if these commanders weren't guilty? What if they were victims of a carefully orchestrated conspiracy designed to ensure their legacies would never challenge the emperor's authority? In today's video, we'll uncover the enigma behind the disappearance of these legendary commanders. Who were they? Why were they so feared? And what made them targets of a conspiracy that condemned them to oblivion? Join us as we delve into Rome's shadowy backstage, where glory and betrayal walked hand in hand, and discover how the empire's greatest military leaders were erased from history. If you're fascinated by Rome's mysteries and the stories of power, betrayal, and conspiracy that shaped the greatest empire in history, subscribe to the channel and leave a like now. Your support helps us continue uncovering secrets like these and keeping alive the memory of those Rome tried to erase. The Roman Empire, with its unmatched military prowess, was built on the backs of its fearless commanders, legends whose victories were etched into the annals of history. Yet, there exists a haunting mystery. Some of the most formidable leaders, once celebrated by their legions, have all but vanished from historical records. How could such powerful figures, whose very names struck fear into their enemies, be erased so completely? The disappearance of these commanders wasn't the result of simple neglect or faded glory. Rather, it hints at a darker force working from within the empire itself. When we examine the fragments of their stories that remain, a chilling pattern emerges. These leaders weren't merely casualties of military defeat. Many of them reached the pinnacle of their careers before vanishing into obscurity. Their names were systematically removed from official documents, monuments, and public memory. This deliberate erasure raises unsettling questions. Who had the power to orchestrate such a purge, and what were they trying to hide? The answer lies not on the battlefield, but in the dangerous political corridors of Rome, where the lines between ally and enemy were dangerously thin. The empire thrived on loyalty and discipline, yet it feared its own heroes. Commanders who were too popular, too successful, or too independent posed a threat to the fragile egos of the emperors and senators who wielded ultimate power. As the empire expanded, so too did the paranoia of its rulers. For some, this meant that glory on the battlefield was a double-edged sword, one that could lead to triumph or to a swift and silent downfall. But what made these leaders targets of such a deadly conspiracy? Were they victims of envy, political rivalry, or something even more insidious? To uncover the truth, we must dive deeper into the fragile balance between power and paranoia in ancient Rome. What happens when those sworn to protect the empire are seen as its greatest threat? Could these vanished commanders have been guilty of treason? Or were they innocent pawns in a game of imperial politics? These questions lead us to explore the complex contradictions that define their rise and fall. Roman commanders often occupied a space between hero and threat. To their soldiers and the people, they were symbols of Rome's strength, unyielding leaders who brought victory and honor. But to the empire's rulers, these same qualities made them dangerous. Their victories were celebrated publicly, But behind closed doors, their growing popularity sparked suspicion and fear. How could someone so essential to Rome's success also be its greatest liability? Take, for instance, the commander's relationship with their troops. Loyalty within the legions was absolute, often transcending allegiance to the emperor. This bond was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it ensured discipline and unity in the field. On the other, it created a power base that could rival the authority of Rome itself. For emperors already grappling with political instability, the idea of a general commanding not just an army, but its undying devotion was a dangerous prospect. Could the loyalty of the legions be turned against the very empire they served? The contradictions didn't stop there. Many of these commanders were accused of betrayal, corruption, or incompetence as justification for their removal. Yet, when we analyze the limited records available, these accusations often crumble under scrutiny. In some cases, the charges were outright fabrications, designed to destroy reputations and justify political purges. Were these leaders truly guilty of undermining Rome, or were they framed by rivals who feared their influence? The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes that these erasures were no coincidence. They were calculated moves in a larger power struggle that consumed the empire from within. But if these commanders weren't guilty, why were they chosen as scapegoats? To answer this, we need to examine the motivations behind Rome's internal power plays and how fear shaped its decisions. Could paranoia alone have orchestrated the downfall of Rome's greatest military leaders? Or was something even darker at work? As we shift our focus from the commanders themselves to the system that destroyed them, a troubling picture begins to emerge. The Roman Empire, while a symbol of unparalleled strength, was deeply insecure at its core. The emperors relied on a delicate balance of power to maintain their rule, constantly fearing both external enemies and internal rivals. This fear wasn't irrational. It was deeply rooted in the volatile nature of Roman politics, where assassination plots and coups were as common as military triumphs. But what happens when the very architects of Rome's victories become the objects of this paranoia? One of the most telling signs of this fear was the systematic dismantling of a commander's legacy. The process often began with whispers. Rumors of disloyalty or secret ambitions circulated among the Senate or the emperor's court. Once enough doubt had been sown, official decrees followed, stripping the commander of their titles and revising historical accounts to erase their achievements. What's striking is the precision of these efforts. It wasn't enough to kill or exile the commander. The empire sought to erase their memory entirely, as though they had never existed. But why go to such lengths? The answer lies in the power of perception. In Rome, a leader's legacy was as important as their life. The fear wasn't just that a commander might stage a rebellion. It was that their memory could inspire future dissent. By erasing these figures from history, the empire attempted to control not just the present, but the narrative of the past. This obsession with control reveals an ironic truth. Despite its outward dominance, the Roman Empire was haunted by its own fragility. But was this fragility the only reason for such drastic measures? Or was the fear of these commanders rooted in something even deeper? Perhaps the recognition that their values or ideals posed a threat to the empire's very foundation. To uncover this, we must consider the broader implications of their erasure. What does it tell us about the lengths to which Rome would go to preserve its power? And how does this reflect the human tendency to rewrite history to suit those in control? The erasure of Rome's commanders wasn't just an act of fear. It was an assertion of power over time itself. By controlling how the past was remembered, the empire shaped not only its own image, but the identity of those who lived under its rule. This manipulation of history was more than a defensive strategy. It was a tool for domination. After all, if the victors write history, then those who control memory hold the ultimate authority. But the consequences of this manipulation were far-reaching. By burying the stories of its greatest leaders, Rome inadvertently weakened its own narrative. These commanders represented the pinnacle of Roman excellence, and their removal left a void that couldn't be filled. This raises an uncomfortable question. Did the empire's obsession with self-preservation ultimately sow the seeds of its decline? When a society turns on its own heroes, what does it say about its future? More importantly, the disappearance of these commanders forces us to question the reliability of history itself. If such monumental figures could be erased, what other truths have been lost to time? It's a sobering reminder that history is often as much about omission as it is about what's preserved. And while Rome's actions may seem extreme, they reflect a universal truth. Those in power will always seek to shape the narrative to their advantage. As we look back at the shadows of these forgotten commanders, one question remains. Were they truly victims of political paranoia? Or is there more to their story that even now lies hidden? Could their erasure have been a deliberate act to conceal not their power, but the secrets they carried? If we could uncover those secrets, what would they reveal? Not just about Rome, but about the nature of power itself? History is shaped by those who hold power, but what about those who defy it? While Rome erased the names of its most infamous commanders, there were those who refused to be forgotten. One such man was Spurius Ligustinus, a soldier who rose from obscurity to become one of Rome's most decorated warriors. But what drove him to greatness? And how did he survive where so many others fell? Join us in the next video to uncover the legendary journey of a soldier who defied fate and conquered glory.